I'm okay with it.
All right. So,
Yes.
welcome to How to Pakistan. We're doing this on video.
Yes.
Which is a weird kind of a. We've done. कितने videos हमने किए हैं?
एक किया था, then we said, यार, nobody's gonna watch these two guys. और वो हमने बंद कर दिया था.
That's not why we बंद कर दिया था. लेकिन चलो जाने दो उसको. Welcome back.
Welcome.
You look fantastic.
But you know, facials and stuff like that.
Is it because you're so happy as to what is being done to the PTI?
देखो, ये मैं
I have to say that's a very K move.
हाँ.
And I don't mean Karachi.
अच्छा.
I mean Kamina.
कमीना.
It's like move. मतलब क्या है ये? इस तरह से तो नहीं होना चाहिए.
नहीं, I agree. मैं ये भी सोच रहा था कि I saw this thing which I really liked on. It was just this JPEG. It said कि like ये कौन सा season चल रहा है? तो ये है erectile dysfunction. That should be the name of the episode also. It is erectile dysfunction. कौन सा election है?
You know we're recording this, right?
I know.
People can see and hear. You tweeted something that was even more hilarious yesterday. And it's like people have taken screenshots of it and they're like, what is the thing you tweeted or Facebooked yesterday? You had like a 1 or 2 liner yesterday.
About what was it?
It was about this dysfunction.
अच्छा.
I don't want to take out my phone and have to look at it. It's like,
मैं भी भूल गया हूँ.
लेकिन काफी अच्छा था. You've been. I'm in this group. You're in the same group, and there was this fantastic cracker of an op-ed by one of our friends, and another friend commented that the best writing comes out of the worst of times. And I just thought to myself, Ya Allah, please, like best writing ले ले और अच्छे times पाकिस्तान को दे.
ये बहुत अर्से पहले we used to be proud of this कि like you know वो नहीं था Confucius का May you live in interesting time में नहीं बस.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to be boring like Sweden.
Yeah.
बस किस्सा वो कर दे. लेकिन अच्छा वैसे एक चीज़ है, I've been following this, elections आ रहे हैं, and the beauty of podcast is like within 2 days they'll throw it back in our faces how wrong we were because यहाँ तो कुछ नहीं पता लग रहा. And the 2 biggest questions जो है, the first one was like I was looking at this election symbol thing और मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा था कि ठीक है pettiness है, लेकिन ये क्यों कर रहे हो? And then I realized कि game क्या है, सब independent बन गए हैं, उसके बाद they'll allocate people, ठीक है वो तोड़ भी सकते हैं. I mean how many will be ideologically pure? अगर हम बहुत कर दे तो आधा होंगे. And so I mean I've just been shocked at what's going on, but again one of the things that एक सवाल जो सब कह रहे हैं कि इस दफ़ा turn out high होगा या low होगा. In fact I did a poll on Twitter on this. 82% said कि it'll be higher. I don't know, मेरा feeling है कि it'll be lower, but it won't be that lower. It'll be वही वो जो 48-52% इसके दरमियान होगा. What do you think?
I think so. Remember that I think the last 2008 was 38% or something. I don't want to cite numbers that I don't remember off the top of my head. If there's a 50% or more turnout, that's real problems for engineers.
Yes.
You know, engineers like people who study at UET and NED. That
Dow Medical College वाले नहीं.
Right. Exactly. It'll be a problem. Ultimately, honestly speaking, the best possible outcome will be like a 65% turnout.
Yeah.
Not because of what I think will happen, because I don't think it'll deliver the kind of mandate that I think a lot of people expect if more people turn out. There's this assumption that the PTI is going to sort of overpower everything and somehow, even at its most popular with no intervention, you know, as a country, I think people don't look at numbers very much, and I don't think anybody's interested either. Like,
yes, that's true.
I mean, there's 266 seats in the general?
I think so.
And then you need 138 to form government? Sorry, 134.
Right.
134. And 3 of them are Islamabad.
Yes.
And 61 are Sindh.
Yeah.
16, I think, are Balochistan.
Yeah.
and 138, or maybe 144 again, but like nearly 150 is Punjab, and then I think 40 something
KP,
45, 46 जो है KP. So even if you sweep KP, and you pick up half of the Punjab, you're really struggling to get to the magic number.
Yes.
I mean, 45 plus 75, for example, gives you 130. It still doesn't give you 134. It definitely doesn't give you a 2/3 mandate where you can reshape the Senate, reshape constitutional, reshape the Constitution. Like that's not happening. So even in the best case scenario, do you feel like the election is going to settle anything for this country?
I think I think one of the real issues is that if, the results, if PTI's structure remains intact, I mean, they can give trouble every so often, whether it's in the form of protest or things like that. Abhi to nahi kar sakte, abhi to they bikhar gaye hain because bahut zyada in pe zor aaya hai and all that, and they've been pressurized. But if the PMLN wins sufficient number of seats and their coalition isn't that dicey, so, I mean, we'd have stability for a year or two.
So what's the sufficient number of seats? Let's just, because for me, as you know, I'm like a kind of, at least I like to think of myself as but as definitely driven by sort of numbers and so what's a sufficient number of, okay, I don't mind that. It's a new one, but okay, I'll take it. कितने सीट आपको sufficient लगता है कि PMLN जीतेगा तो stability आ जाएगी?
I think, if they get to 120, 130 and they get a,
general seats out of 266. Say it again. I want it because I want to make sure it's captured.
नहीं तुम कह रहे हो कि
नहीं 120 आप like
मुझे नहीं पता कहाँ से आएंगे, ठीक है ना?
नहीं तो मैं तो ये कह रहा हूँ जो आपको पता है कहाँ से आएंगे उस पे जरा मुझे अंदाजा बताएं.
उसमें अगर आएंगे
कितने जीतेंगे 45 में से?
केबी में बस वही हजारे वाले कुछ जीत लेंगे.
कुछ means what? 2?
5?
Anyway, let's go all out. Let's go big. Let's go 5. I don't see it, but let's go 5. Sindh. Just I wanted to repeat.
0.
Okay, but let's go big there too. Let's give him one. ठीक है ना? वो मरवत साहब शायद महमूदाबाद वाली जीत जाए और फिर स्विच कर लें because I don't think he's with PMLN right now. I don't even know कि वो टिकट किसको दे रहे हैं. मिफ्ता को भी निकाल दिया और खैर बिस्मिल्लाह. बलूचिस्तान में 16 सीटें हैं. कितनी जीतेंगे?
0.
नहीं, let's give them 2.
ठीक है.
एक सनाउल्लाह साहब की एक किसी और की. I don't know.
ठीक है. All right. ठीक है.
So that's 2 plus 1 plus 5 magically. So that's 8. Let's say Islamabad की 3 में से 2 जीत जाते हैं.
Okay.
So now they have 10 outside the Punjab.
Yes.
So they still have 124 to go. So to get to the majority, a simple majority for PMLN. So they would have to win everything except 20 seats in the Punjab.
बहुत मुश्किल.
Now, is that happening?
No, that's not happening.
Is half of that happening? So
that
out of 140,
that could happen.
So you think 70 seats वो जीत सकते हैं?
60, 70,
Let's go 70.
ठीक है.
Because
you're in a good mood.
I'm Santa Claus, baby. Let's go. So 70 in the Punjab and 10 outside. Total PMLN standing is 80 seats. So they're short by 20 plus 34, 54 seats. किधर से लाओगे?
नहीं बहुत मुश्किल है.
अच्छा. So ये वाला ये जो टोपी ड्रामा है, जो ड्रामा है या टोपी है या टोपी ड्रामा है या मतलब I don't know क्या है, ये जो PPP PMLN वाला, is this a real fight?
No, I think they'll make up.
So I don't think they'll make up.
You don't
immediately?
think so?
No,
Okay.
I think it's a real fight.
Okay.
But the real fight isn't like ideological or over seat adjustments or anything. The real fight is who's going to get in.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I think there's a real competition. And by the way, this is the competition that has always enabled whatever Pindi's doing.
Yes.
Right? Whenever these guys make up, not just the two of them, but now we have a third actor. If you want civilian baladasti, you can't get it without a 3-way makeup.
Yes.
PTI makes up with PPP, makes up with PMLN, makes up with PTI.
Yeah.
That circle Without completing that loop, there's no future.
Yes.
4, what we have come to believe, and I think this is also kind of a quasi sort of Gen X fantasy, this whole 2006 to 2010 moment, I mean, it's gone.
Yeah.
So, ये तो PMLN के numbers हो
हाँ, ठीक है.
PPP के numbers इससे बुरे हैं,
बहुत
बेहतर
बुरे,
नहीं है,
हाँ.
right? PTI के numbers
हाँ.
at best PML नून वाले numbers होंगे, नहीं होंगे, लेकिन अगर कोई मतलब अगर 65% turnout हो जाता है, शहरों में ज़्यादा लोग आ जाते हैं, लाहौर को मतलब magically और फैसलाबाद को PTI sweep कर लेती है, even then, these are the numbers, which makes the IPP, and I'm not talking about the independent power projects, talking about the not independent political party. So these guys are going to be very key.
Yeah, to anybody.
MQM is going to be key. The JUIF is going to be key. And even put together, all of them will struggle to form that 54-seat gap between a party that wins 80 seats and having enough of a majority to win. All of this makes me think, well, I ask you, you said you see stability. If somehow the PMLN wins 120 seats, I just showed you, at least according to what's reasonable, that no one's winning 120 seats. So absent 120 seats, where's stability going to come from?
I agree. I think that was a good class in numbers. But I also believe that whether somebody is put together with a majority, without, वो जो अभी structure है enforcement from Pindi, that's going to remain, right? So whether somebody has a good majority or it's going to be this hodgepodge casserole, जो the
casserole,
this casserole,
hold the phone, casserole. तू हलीम नहीं बना सकता था, शबदेग नहीं बना सकता था, कढ़ाई नहीं बना सकता था, like
यार उनके ingredients एक है, casserole क्या होता है?
मुझे तो पता भी नहीं
you throw जो आपका रह जाता है ना, you throw it all together.
I thought कि कोई रोल करते हैं उसमें.
नहीं, ठीक है ना. तू कनाडा में तू रेजाइना में था क्या? तू कोई टॉप सिटी में नहीं था मेरे ख्याल. टोरंटो सिटी.
मैं टॉप सिटी में ही था.
नहीं थे. तुझे पता होता है.
फ्लाइट का वेट. नहीं ये वाली टॉप सिटी.
No, but so I just think the structure is going to be the same.
So okay, so I think that's what I wanted to get at, is that if there will be stability, it will not be because anything that happens in the election or anything enacted by political parties. But that is a really depressing thought if you are invested. Just say, I think 3 things that I've been very impressed by. One is the PTI's kind of pushback. Well, it's very brave and courageous and very impressive that they're still out there mobilizing and campaigning. Bilal's articulation of a range of ideas, I don't agree with a lot of it. I've seen the manifesto. It's not, again, it's not ideal, but at least it's some ideas. And also, I would say the PMLN's relative self-control. I mean, other than Atala Tadar and a few others, I mean, they're actually reasonably, they could be more vindictive is what I would say. I mean, they are being vindictive, but I think...
I have a theory on that.
What is that?
I mean, recently, the Syrian Nikolai, like when Nawaz Sharif got disqualified and there was like, Cheshire cat grins and ladoos and force feeding.
It was more than that. I mean, I honestly thought Sabir Shakir was going to have it was
it probably did happen. ठीक है ना, लेकिन उसका ये था कि like I was also noticing कि PMLN hasn't celebrated like that because they know how quickly these tables turn.
That what is going around is about to come around.
यार 3 साल बाद ठीक है ना, हमारी भी यही तस्वीरें आएंगी.
So in our relationship, you've always been the sort of realist or pessimist, and I've always been the optimist.
Yes.
But you keep saying these things. First you said stability aa jayegi, and I had to pull you back to reality. Now you just said something really interesting. You said 3 saal baad. Talk to me more about how long you think this whole thing is going to last. I mean, and why you think it's 3 years?
Because history. 2 saal, ye relatively, I mean, they put pressure, but the real sort of problem starts after 2-3 years. I think.
Does it depend on who the prime minister is? Because I have a view on this, but I want to hear yours.
So I mean, if it's Nawaz Sharif, he's going to go in with temerity from day one because he's got history, and then he's got maybe a chief who's positively disposed to him, but the rank and file isn't. So even they will have issues of trying to prove.
So
that,
if Nawaz Sharif, let me just ask you, if Nawaz Sharif is prime minister, you still stick to 3 years?
नहीं, वो जो है ना, वो 18 महीने होगा, वो जो है ना
18 महीने
18 महीने होगा,
Still the optimist.
हाँ, there's going to be a problem. And if it's
anybody else,
वो
3 years,
2.5 साल में शुरू हो जाएगा, 3 साल में crisis होगा, 2 years if they let them, nobody will do anything.
What's the order of crises? Like, what's the first crisis that you anticipate?
The first crisis, I personally think that if it's Nawaz Sharif, it'll be the inordinate space given to SIFC. Because if he's going to be in charge of the economy, and if he brings back somebody like Zaka, right, there is an orthodoxy they've decided for the time being that is going to be an issue from day one. I also think that if he's got some other plans on all that, he doesn't have the same wherewithal of independence that, I mean, SIFC is technically massive. Like when you're looking at some of the decisions they want to make.
It's a supra government.
It's a supra government. And I think that's going to be an issue from day one. It may not be such an issue for PPP. I think it'll be an issue for PPP if SIFC eventually gets more ambitious and then they say that the federal structure of money is distributed is not working. Because they've been making that case.
Is there any doubt that that isn't going to happen?
That is going to happen, right? And that I think like maybe PMLN would be a little okay with. They'll also have issues, but PPP definitely will. So each one of them will have a crisis emerging because abhi.
And you're saying, I guess what I'm trying to get you to say is that it'll be days and weeks and not months and years before these things explode.
Yeah, that's true.
So my question, I would ask anybody, and I'm not asking like as a gotcha question, I'm genuinely asking, कि भाई, agar, let's say there's a quarrel in the first couple of weeks, really. SIFC maybe takes longer, but to me, even the IMF deal and the parameters of the IMF deal are going to be heavily contested. The things that maybe one party would be happy to promise, maybe others would not be happy. So there'll be conflict there as well. And then on the really sensitive stuff, who runs the finance ministry if PMLN is in charge? That's a fight. And I don't think Nawaz Sharif is interested in anyone's wisdom because I think he has his own ideas. And I think for a guy that might be taking oath for the 4th time, at least in my mind, I don't think there's a lot of expertise in the universe that's going to convince him of what way to go. He has his own ideas. Look, Imran Khan had no experience as prime minister and he had strong ideas. Right or wrong. And it was hard to influence that. I mean, his view that Assad was the right guy for the finance ministry is what drove him to make that decision and then stick with Assad for 7 months, right? And it's only after intense pressure, or maybe not that much pressure, that he kind of, caved and gave the ministry to someone else.
ये वैसे एक और चीज़ है. Do you remember Umar was on our podcast once before the elections in 2018, Umar Wadaich, and we had a discussion, and I always remembered the way he phrased an answer, which I found interesting. And coming back to your argument, where you're the pessimist in this case, right? We were having this discussion, and we were saying like, when will Imran Khan fall out with the military? And उस वक्त मैंने कहा था कि like I think maybe he'll be able to not fall out because of how strong they were together. And then and plus he was also fairly practiced. वो तो सुबह शाम कह रहा था कि military daddy, one page, everything ठीक है ना. और so what Umar said is he says, I just want to say one thing. जो भी अभी लग रहा है, he says when you're any man who can become Prime Minister, you have a massive ego. ठीक है ना. इमरान खान का नज़र आता है in one way, नवाज शरीफ का दबो है, but it's the same thing. Zardari ka bhi, it manifests differently, but it's the same. He says There is no one who's had a lifetime dream that I would love to be the absolute ruler of a country, sharing power unofficially with another person who's actually stronger than me. The way he phrased it, right? He says this is the fundamental contradiction. Okay?
But that goes both ways, right?
That goes both ways. And that, I was once having a discussion with somebody else, and it was odd. Remember one of your articles I loved, I always cited. Oh, when I think Bajwa was appointed, and then what you did was that you took out the introductory thinker's man, thinker soldier, loves democracy. Wow. And then when I realized that har ek ke liye, there are just
it was the same stuff.
It was the same stuff, everyone, right? So वो मुझे मैंने किसी से पूछा कि यार when Bajwa was appointed, मैं कहा यार I'm hearing feelers that this guy is a bit pro democracy. What do you say? The guy said यार actually आप समझते नहीं 6 माह बाद he will realize कि ये job में क्या क्या हो सकता है मेरे helipad, I can actually decide this, I can make a stadium here, all I have to do is say it. He says that's when we find out who they are, and that's also an interesting angle. So when you say this, right, I mean I'm also looking at they're doing this talking tour, and then you hear stuff like social media these are. And unfortunately, if it's the PMLN will go along with it. If it's the PTI, they'll go along with it. PPP will maybe, more restrictions coming, almost some old-fashioned ideas coming back again in terms of what state and society should be structured.
So before we close out for today, what's wrong with some of those old-fashioned ideas given what the new-fashioned freedoms have given us? So unfettered, willy-nilly freedom online, for example, has given us global troll farms.
Yes.
Russia influencing operations to turn the election in the United States. A slew of challenges and problems in Pakistan, including some very real and difficult challenges. Blasphemy cases in which people's lives are at stake, and the authorities not having the ability to control what people can see on their Facebook pages. The more forget blasphemy for a second, even incendiary, sectarian narratives, narratives that encourage people to go after minorities. Actually, कोई property dispute है, उसको एक religious vote, and this the fire starter, the ignition, the diesel for all this is social media. Because 25 years ago, when you had this kind of a problem, you had to mobilize through existing traditional institutions. You wanted to mobilize Christians in Johannabad, you had to go to the church. You wanted to mobilize Muslims.
Moderating factors
exactly, because everybody in the community realized you wanted to mobilize Muslims against Ahmadis, you had to go to a mosque. It's not as difficult now, right? And so in some ways, when people say, well, there's going to be more restrictions on, for example, social media, of course we don't want political parties being targeted when they're not there to spread intishar, for example. Although, again, with May 9th, I think PTI's position on that has been weakened in terms of the argument. But there are some genuine social evils that we don't have answers for.
So this is what I want to say is remember when we were on Shehzad's podcast, I also have an opinion around this somewhat like what you're describing. इसमें जो मुझे डर लगता है is that yes, this unfettered thing has created a massive amount of, it's skewing discourse. You can't actually do anything reasonable anymore. Otherwise, there's so many bad faith actors that will bring up these caveats that you'll be addressing those without ever pushing a major argument or something, and that becomes difficult. But at the same time, जब वो state उसे use करती है, that's my issue, right? Because then you put it in terms of 5th, 6th, 7th generation warfare, which is not meant to be used against your own people. Or, I mean, you mentioned PTI. Look, there may be one minority that is talking about some extreme things that we mentioned before also. Like a large majority, if they're talking about कि यार election fair कर दो, ठीक है, हमारा symbol हमें दे दो, and then that becomes the basis of repression, which is the thing that actually tends to happen sometimes, is the greatest fear I have that yes, that the agent that is now responsible for moderating this into something that you could feel is not neutral.
But look, I mean, I don't have a position on this, right? I've always actually traditionally had, I mean, I'm a conservative, but my positions on almost all of these issues have been classical liberal positions, which is let people be.
So you can party with us when the time comes.
To the extent that I can party at all. Like, that's a debate and a discussion for another day. But I think the challenge that I see with a lot of this now is we can't escape the negative impacts of how narratives that are basically deeply destructive. The reason why it's not a position is that I'm not endorsing the alternative. So if in the US, if you say, well, Trump supporters are like Jan 6th and they're destructive and they're full of hatred. Well, yes, but 65, 70% of what they say is actually, you cannot argue with it. Now, you might judge that to be 50%, and a very liberal friend might judge that to be 40%. But there is a significant substance that you have to actually engage with. But when we take these ideological positions, it's like zero or not. It's zero or one, right? It's all or nothing.
I agree with this absolutely. I'll tell you one thing that I also believe, and is that it's not even about social media. In Pakistan's case, is now we have to come back to the point that, you know, what is our state? How do we live together? What are the agreements that we have in terms of what kind of behavior and things are acceptable? Because एक तो ये है कि like polarization में ये हो गया कि the thing we're saying is if these three guys get together, maybe we'll have some semblance of a functioning state or the rules of the game. वो हो ही नहीं सकता.
नहीं, वो तब भी नहीं होगा. देखो, वो जो three parties get together का issue है ना, वो I think we should spend more time talking about this. You can't have any civilian supremacy conversation unless civilians develop a compact of working with each other.
This is what I'm talking about, right?
No, but I don't want it to be misconstrued, right? Or deliberately misrepresented. It goes back to the, you know, there's a genuine fear of being taken out of context. If civilians come together, civilian supremacy does not equal functioning state.
True.
Civilian supremacy doesn't equal working schools, clean water, buses on time, Switzerland. No. Civilian supremacy is just what it is. It's civilian authority over decision-making in Pakistan. It is, we associate a value to it because for you and I, adult franchise, representation, human agency are valuable.
But I just want to add one thing. I agree with what you're saying, but my argument is also is that since '99 we haven't had civilian supremacy. I'd like to try it out once.
Did we have civilian supremacy in '97?
No.
Nawaz Sharif won a thumping majority.
Yeah, we didn't. But I'm just saying is '99 mein system hi khatam ho gaya tha, right? And we've come back. I'm choosing to make like two waves. ठीक है? एक ज़्यादा हो गया, एक 90s हो गया और एक उसके बाद.
Perfect.
Sorry, 2 minutes left.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. Guy behind the camera, invisible person that we're not going to name. It's actually a famous person behind the camera, but you know that's a secret for another day. So the issue, now that we only have 2 minutes left, to me, is do you regret your enthusiasm about the 2006 to 2010 era? Given where we are, it's 2024. It's a long time. It's 16 years.
It doesn't. It seems like yesterday to me.
Of course, because we're old.
We're old,
and there's too much. We have too many screens, frankly. But do you regret your enthusiasm about that moment in Pakistani history? Because you just said you went all the way back to '99. You didn't even consider all the achievements between 2006 and 2010.
I mean, why are you starting at 2006?
Charter of Democracy.
Charter of Democracy.
And then March 2007, lawyers' movement begins.
Okay.
And then...
Okay, no, look, that all, I mean, I think I'm proud of it. I'm glad because that was instrumental.
But pata kya?
बहुत कुछ हुआ है.
No, wait, today, an 18-year-old kid today was, in 2006, was born.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, for that kid who's going out to vote for the first time, you're going to sell him on the 18th Amendment? Because I don't think that kid's biting.
He's not biting, I agree. And unfortunately, whether he appreciates it or not, it remains important.
Okay. So you're saying you know better than the youth?
I'm saying that I lived longer and us waqt I was impressed. I still think it's a good thing.
Last question then.
And that is not to discount what they're demanding now.
Good
That
caveat.
is not, yeah.
काफी ट्रोलिंग से आप बच गए ये आखिरी जो होता है well done but the last one is there a positive path in 30 seconds or less from now until 2 months after the election in which we renew some of that energy?
I think it's
some of that
possible.
big Democrat energy.
Yeah, I think it's possible. It's going to happen. And like देखें आप जैसे Debbie Downers for this country, we need positives.
Well, is that running? Is the other one running?
तो बस वही से
Yeah,
goodbye
so the sound is running and
But
this is all part of it.
But
Finish the thought.
We'll continue this. I believe. Look, I just actually sometimes I think that हालात बहुत बुरे हैं, ठीक है ना? But we're looking right now for a basic functioning state.
We have a basic functioning. यार देखो
नहीं एक overhang तो था ना. Like I know you don't think default is such a big thing. I think it's going to be a massive thing.
No, I do think it's a big thing.
When did you change your mind?
No, I've always thought it's
एक ज़माने में तू था
2008 में मैंने एक आर्टिकल जहाँ मैंने कहा था that the negatives of default if you don't reform may not be that bad. By the way, it holds truer today than it ever did. You haven't done any reform since 2000.
I agree with that. And
so,
I'm not saying
so actually,
I didn't know कि तुम्हारा इतना change हुआ है, right?
No.
But I'm scared of default for multiple host of reasons.
Everyone among the elite is scared. I'm also scared of default. But that doesn't make the argument for potentially defaulting any less potent. Have you studied what Argentina has been doing?
No.
Let's look at that and come back in our next episode and talk more about that. But congratulations on your big Democrat energy.
Yeah.
And congratulations.
Big Democrat energy.
You like it? We'll see you guys very soon. Make sure you go out and vote. I don't know what
camera. Everyone should vote.
Go out and vote, inshallah.
Inshallah.